Hey, meaningful movers. Welcome back to Moving with Meaning, the podcast where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. In today's episode, let's scratch the surface and peel away all the veneer to expose all the perfect imperfections. Let's see where we need to pay special attention and make sure our upkeep is up to par. But you know how it is and what we do. We need to set that theme, so let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is strip. Get your minds out the gutter. This is the action of removing the outer layer with the intention to leave bare. Think of all the adornments we add to ourselves for the sake of appearances. That's some effort just to show up as an imposter. You know what they say about lies? You have to tell another one, and then another one, and then another one, just to keep that facade going. That's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? There's no one better to do that than herself, Debbie. Why don't you give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you gonna share with us today?
Absolutely. But I could listen to you talk instead of me talk because, wow, you're interesting and exciting to listen to. Me? I don't know. We'll see. So my name is Debbie Weiss, and I am an author and a speaker. The reason I do those things is to share my story of overcoming my limiting beliefs, my circumstances, and feeling like, is this it with my life? And thinking it is it. There are no other options. But I discovered I was wrong. And so for the last 10 years, I've been on a journey of self-discovery that's led me down places I could never have imagined. And so I'm here to inspire everyone to do the same.
For sure. I like how you said that. It's like this long and winding road, and it just keeps on going. So you're talking about you are an author and a speaker. You also do digital course creation. Is that right?
You're right. I'm glad you put that in there. I almost forgot.
I got to call out all your good stuff, girl. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay. So I guess tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure.
That got you to thinking like, is this it? Yeah, I know you were a caregiver for a little bit and you just spent your life just taking care of people. What's up with that?
Exactly. My caregiving started when I was 17, the day after I graduated from high school. My father had a massive stroke and luckily survived. And my parents soon divorced. And my dad was my responsibility for the remaining 30 years of his life. At, such a young age to have to, well, one, learn how to take care of someone else. Two, try and understand what is Social Security and Medicare and private disability and all these terms that teenagers have no reason to know. In the beginning, it made me feel good and useful and kind of proud of myself that I was stepping up and I was my dad's person. But over time, as my life progressed, I became resentful, felt sorry for myself. Why me? Not that I resented my father per se, but just I think the situation. And then when my oldest son was 2, he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. That kind of just was quite upsetting. And at the time, he's 23 now. And so back then, they just handed you a pamphlet and said, good luck. You're the mom, you know what's best.
Right, of course.
What?
Right. Yeah.
No, I don't know anything.
This is the first time I'm being a mom. I don't even know what. Yeah.
Sure. Not at this point. Never knew anything about autism. So started to learn an awful lot. And so trying to take care of that. And then my younger son's only 21 months younger. And my dad still working full time. And, the stress, the self-pity just continued to pile on. I was bitter and angry and resentful. I mean, if you met me, you wouldn't know that. I've always been an upbeat person. But on the inside, I was comparing myself to others saying, why is their life seem to be so much easier than mine? And what have I done to deserve this? And how come I have all this stress and responsibility? It was eating me alive. It really was. And I didn't see any way out. I wasn't dumping my father or leaving my son or, I wasn't going to remove myself. So I just figured I just had to just keep on keeping on kind of thing.
Gosh. What happened? Because I think this also happened with your husband too, right?
Yes. And then later it happened with my husband. Yes.
I think you mentioned like at 50.
Yep.
Mortality set in for you.
Exactly. Yes.
Why did that come across? What happened? You know how some people are kind of like, there's always this trigger or what have you that makes this come up. What happened?
Looking back, I don't know if it wasn't like, one moment that I can describe that was amazing, that the heavens opened up and said, oh, God, here's what you're supposed to do. But I think for me, something about the number 50, I think just really made me reflect on my life and what I wanted the rest of my life to look like. I knew that I did not want to be that person who got to the end of their lives and looked back with regret and said, wow, that flew by so fast. I never got to, do X. And the thing was, I didn't have an X. Like, I didn't have some pent up desire to be an artist or a writer or anything. Like, I had nothing. I didn't know what it was. But I just felt that there had to be something more. Something I think that was maybe more fulfilling and made me feel good. Over time, I realized nobody's going to come in and change this for me, right? Like the fairy godmother, the genie, the witch, nobody's coming to fix this. I've got to figure it out for myself. And so I slowly started doing that. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm 61. I'm going to continue figuring it out and continuing on this journey now until I take my last breath. Not to sound cliche, because I think it does sound terribly cliche, but the journey really has been what it's about. It's crazy. Even today, I just got off a call with like this little book group that actually got me into writing. My next book, as we're recording this, is coming out Monday, and they're like, are you excited? And I said, no, not it's the first book was exciting. I'm already in my head onto book number 3.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. It's like, oh yeah, now it's been the last several months have been about the behind the scenes boring stuff, right? Where do I want the page numbers? Where do I, stuff it's like stupid, but you have to think about. So it's like, okay, no, I'm done with that. Like that part of my journey is over. I don't think about going out and trying to sell it. That's not fun. That's not part of the journey. No. Now it's, okay, what's next? What's next? And so it's that kind of feeling to get up every day and be excited about what you're doing, what you're learning, getting to talk to you. Like, how cool is this? I would never have met you. We would never be having this conversation. It's a lot different feeling than getting up every day and going through the same motions, checking the box off the list, going to work, doing my thing, coming home, being exhausted, doing the laundry, living. This is amazing. And it's the journey. It's not about where am I going.
Yeah. They do say that. They say enjoy the journey, not the destination. I think that is so true. And I like this question that you mentioned before. We were talking about this. You're like, I was at 50. I asked myself, if I died, would I have any regrets? And that answer was yes. That's a hard yes. That's a hard thing to admit to yourself. Like, we would never admit that to anyone else. We'd be like, I have no regrets. But then the moment that you actually say that to yourself and say, yeah, I've got regrets, that's a big one.
Yep.
And you mentioned earlier how you said, hey, on the surface, if you met me, everything probably does look great. You wouldn't know that I was resentful, that I was bitter. And I'm thinking the same thing. Like, yeah, that's kind of how I was just going through the day for a while too. I was just bitter about things. In some cases, I was waiting. I was waiting for someone to catch me because I felt like I was falling and I was waiting to be caught, and it was like, I've been doing so much for so many other people that I was thinking to myself, and this is a weird way to think about it, but I was like, I got to catch me too. I got to do this too.
I love that.
I remember thinking about it. I was like, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. I want somebody to help me with this.
Yeah.
You have to kind of shed that facade for a bit, because if you don't prioritize yourself and you don't even think that you're worth saving, then who is? Who is?
Exactly.
So you said that there was a money situation you had going on and you just wasn't able to talk about it with your husband. Why? Were you worried about his reaction?
Yeah, so I was the money person. My first career, I was a CPA for 10 years, which also adds a lot of shame to my money situation, the fact that I know better. But for a lot of reasons, I had gotten us into serious debt through medical bills having to do with my son's therapy that weren't covered. And then as stuff to do with our careers and salary changes and whatnot. Anytime that I would bring it up to my husband, he would shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand it at the time, but he was suffering with anxiety and depression. He did the food shopping. So just me saying, Gary was his name. Gary, you got to really cut back. Do we really need to have this $10 drink or whatever it is? Why? And then he'd question me. And then that was it. He would not speak. He would take it to an extreme, the whole money thing. And it made me miserable. And so I stopped talking to him about it because I couldn't deal with his reaction. And he knew that there was an issue, but he had no idea, I don't believe, just how bad the issue was. It was one of those things where I was incredibly embarrassed. My closest friends had no idea what I was dealing with. And I'm talking like I'm self-employed. So when you're self-employed, you pay estimated taxes throughout the year. I stopped paying the estimated taxes to be able to pay my regular bills in hopes that something was going to happen by April 15th the next year, that I would be able to catch up. It was incredibly stressful. The amount that I kept owing the government was just
piling up.
Oh, piling. I couldn't think of the word piling, but because just the memory of it just makes me sick.
Yeah.
And nobody knew. My cousin and I, this is back in the February of 2020, right before the pandemic, we went to an event to see Oprah. She was doing like a 10 city, and I don't know if it was 10, but it wasn't many, city tour with Weight Watchers, who I've been a lifelong Weight Watchers person. And it wasn't about weight, but it was kind of, like an empowerment kind of thing. At the end of the day, she comes on the stage all by herself, and it's in a big arena, like 16,000 people. And she shares a story, and I don't even remember what it was, but was very personal and difficult. She said something like, what's your secret? We all have a secret. And I'm telling you that you keep that secret, or you keep pushing it down and ignoring it and not dealing with it. And eventually it's going to erupt like a volcano, and you'll have no control over what happens. If you deal with it, it might not be fun, but at least you will have control over what happens. And I started to cry. I realized that was it. I had to do something. I didn't know what it was, but I had to take responsibility. It was no quick fix. It was years, but just knowing that I was doing something about it made all the difference.
I think that's your moment where just things just kind of clicked. I like how you said you had to take responsibility.
Yep.
Not later, not when you got home, right then. Just to kind of go back and build on some of the other things that you were mentioning before. You were in a phase where you were kind of just getting more resentful. You felt like you were blaming everyone and everything for everything that was hard on you, right?
Yep.
Can you expound on that?
Yeah, I felt that these things were happening to me. Why was I having to deal with all of these issues? What had I done? That comparison, even before social media. At that time, social media had already been around, in 2020, obviously. But even before social media, I just couldn't understand. I'm a good person. I can say I struggled with my weight. 61 years, I still struggle with my weight. But as a child and a teenager, it was super difficult. I struggled with my weight, and then it was the caregiving, and then I struggled with infertility for 5 years. And then it was my oldest son, and then I had a huge 35 out of the blue. I had to have like this spinal fusion. Like I didn't even have a problem one day, and the next thing I couldn't walk. Just kept coming. I didn't understand why it kept happening to me. And my friends fed into that too, because they kept saying, well, what is it today? And they weren't saying it like that I was making stuff up or I was embellishing. They also couldn't believe oh my gosh. Then my son struggled with mental illness. Then my husband got sick. Is it ever gonna end? Each thing that happened, it was just another indication to me that I had no control of my life. These things just kept coming and I couldn't dodge them. So I would try and catch them and figure out, I'm a problem solver. So I wasn't one to sit back and wallow. And then everyone would say, oh, you're so strong, which I would hate. how do you do that? I could never deal with that. Well, you would deal with it. You know, you just don't know until you're in that situation. I am nothing special. I am just like everybody else. We all have different ways that we deal with things. So on the outside, I was dealing with everything. I was holding it all together. But on the inside, I was crumbling.
Damn. I think what made also that moment on the Oprah show very profound for you was all the things that you just mentioned, lining them up. I mean, I'm just thinking about it because the way that you're expressing it and how you're going and talking about it, I mean, it's like, this was a lot. This was a lot coming at me, and I just kept standing in front of it, and you could just kind of see yourself getting worn down a little bit. It was important in that moment. All of those things started to kind of come through in a split second.
Oh, yeah.
All of those things. It's like a page. You know how you flip a page? And it's just you're going through that? I hope at that moment that you also said, I'm a beast. I did all that for other people. Imagine what I could do for me. That's the only thing I could think of in that moment, just listening to the passion of everything that you went through and, how you were taking it all in. And then that one moment when you just teared up and cried. So what did you do? I know you wrote a memoir. What did you do when you took responsibility in that moment?
Well, I'll tell you what, sounds so ridiculous, but really any progress that I've made always has started with something small. So I came home and I was like, okay, there's two things you can do. You can make more money and spend less money, right? So I started selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace. It was like exciting. I didn't care. If I sold something for $3, my family would make fun of me. I'm like, I just got $3 for something that's sitting in a closet somewhere.
Yes.
And you know what? I would take the $3 and I had a little envelope. And by the end of the month, I had enough money to pay for our haircuts.
Oh.
Just that small step made me think, well, look at that. I've made this little amount of progress, and it felt so darn good. I want more of that feeling, so what else can I do? Actually then went and talked to an attorney about the tax situation. Like I just started taking control, and each step that I took to take control relaxed me. And that is when I felt really good, because now I knew that I was taking responsibility and I was taking action to solve this problem that had been eating away at me for probably since my son was young. So probably almost 20 years.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point that you just made there, is to celebrate the small milestones, to give yourself credit for that. Because right before, we were just at the beginning, it was, aren't you excited about your book coming out? And you're like, oh, I'm already on book 3.
Yeah.
Right? And this is a good moment to just say, well, just take a moment for a week or two and just live in this one accomplishment. Because now you have the time. Now you have the time. And I think you should capitalize on that bad boy, because writing a book ain't no easy thing.
Oh,
Getting
no,
it edited
not.
And going through editing. I'm telling you, when I went through editing, I rethought the whole damn book. I was like, maybe just, and the editor had to kind of really say, oh, no, I'm, this is a great book. I'm like, really? Because it doesn't sound like it. But that whole process of just going through just the revision process. So now and now you're going through a revision process of your life. It's amazing, right? At the end, where you kind of look at it and you capture it all in, and it's just a different way of looking at life and looking at the things that you've gone through. So you wrote a memoir.
Yep.
And you have this statement about the sprinkle effect. What is this?
Yep. So my book that I'm excited is coming out is called The Sprinkle Effect, A Guide to Creating a More Colorful and Fulfilling Life. So my memoir is really a compilation of stories about my life in a chronological order that will inspire you to see that regardless of your circumstances and your limiting beliefs, that you can change your life. But it doesn't give any explanation of, okay, that's great, how? And so that's where book 2 comes in, is that it's the how, it's the little sprinkles of different things that slowly start to change your life, and sprinkles of mindset, of belief, of dreams, and then action and discipline and curiosity and joy, just to name a few.
So now, last question I want to ask you is, Is there something about a caregiver support squad you got going on?
So no, I
What is
no
that? Tell me
longer.
about this.
So well, let me tell you though.
Yeah.
That was part of my journey, because after the money thing, I actually decided, okay, how can I make more money? So I decided that I was going to sell this supplement that I used that I really, really liked. It was a network marketing company. Not that I had ever had a desire to do such a thing, but I did have a passion for the product. So from listening to a podcast, I joined a mastermind, which I had no idea what the heck a mastermind was, and it was all online. I met amazing people, and I found out that, there are people out there who are coaching other people based on their experience and sharing their experience. And what was my experience in? Caregiving. And so it was through that I decided to form the Caregiver Support Squad, which I still love that name.
Yeah,
Caregiver Support Squad. The goal was to help other caregivers learn to prioritize their self-care. What I found was, and I think it was because I was in pretty intense throes of my own caregiving journey, that when I was working with other caregivers, the idea of the whole support squad was to help them with their own needs. But yet as a caregiver, they wanted to tell me their stories, their issues, their problems with their loved ones. And I'm empathetic, and I would get off calls and just, I don't want to say be down, but it weighed on me. And I realized I can't do this, or at least I can't do this now. It's taking an emotional toll on me. And like I said, I was going through my own personal journey. At that point, I decided to pivot and really share my broader message that anyone can relate to about no longer being a victim of your life and your circumstances.
Yeah. And I like that too. I mean, good intentions. It may have just been a different way of the method, right? The method is probably the thing that needed to be changed. But I think the message and everything was still there for the time that you were with those individuals. I'm sure they appreciated a listening ear. Sometimes that's all we need.
Yeah, and that is absolutely true. I just didn't have the capacity. And really,
Sure.
really, you know what? That was like, for me, that would have in the past been hard to admit to, because it kind of, it feels self-serving or like a defeatist attitude. But in the end, it was really the ultimate form of self-care, because I knew that it was not what I needed at that time. And it was also difficult to say, hey, I gave this a try and it didn't work out. But you know what? I learned something. And so it wasn't a failure, so to speak. It was just a step on my journey.
Yeah. Self-awareness. I think, hey, don't sleep on it, folks. I like it. All right. Well, this was a great conversation. I know there are a ton of folks out there who are not only caregivers, but just kind of look at their life. They're in that self-pity realm. But I really am inspired by your journey, and I hope you have some golden nuggets that you just want to add some ketchup for the folks out there.
Well, let me finish by sharing my most favorite quote with everyone. And I was never a girl who related to quotes. Like when Facebook first started, it was like in a yearbook where you would like put your quote. And I'm like, what's with these quotes? I don't have a darn quote. What's wrong with me? And then several years ago, I read a quote that everyone, when I say it, will pretty much know it. And it landed differently with me. So the quote is from Glinda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz, who said, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself." And I always thought that was just like, hey, Dorothy, all you had to do was click your heels 3 times, say home, and there you would have been. You just didn't know it. But really, it's a message to all of us that each of us has the power inside. We just have to realize it. And then once we do, we're unstoppable.
All right. Activate it, folks. I like that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's the episode today. There is more to simply saying, live without regrets. Have you ever paused and asked yourself if you have any? And if so, what are you going to do about it? Much of our life is spent guessing or worrying about what others think, say, or feel, that when we look ourselves in the mirror and really see who we are, we don't recognize the person looking back. I truly appreciate Debbie for sharing her moments in time, and I'm sure that those who she cared for are grateful. But now it's Debbie's time, and taking responsibility for how she wanted to live life, carefree and full of inspiration. Have you had moments where you were honest with yourself? What did that look like for you? I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Debbie, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are, where they can find your resources or reach out to you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Krystal. It was great. So you can find me, basically my website, it'll lead to everything. It's DebbieRWeiss.com. You have to put in the R, otherwise you wind up on a realtor in California. And DebbieRWeiss.com/books will lead you to the books.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to include all of Debbie's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving With Meaning the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I am on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We're creating a community. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82 and on Pinterest at Arthur KB Clark. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. My Etsy store has some handy-dandy digital downloads. Lastly, run over to my YouTube channel and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Krystal on Moving With Meaning the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.